Okay, right. Let's start this thing. So, hello, and welcome to our weekly HudUniGames cast for the second time today. Coming to you from our home offices, hence the interesting layout that you're seeing. My name is Duke. I'm joined today by Matt, Daryl, and Ash.
Hello.
And we're going to talk about software availability, some new release stuff, and some Q&A as time goes on. So if you run the intro, Matt.
Okay, I think we're back in the room now.
Cool.
Yep, looks like it.
Okay, so as Duke says, the things that we want to talk to about today are, number one, software availability. So I've got a little fun PowerPoint put together to talk us through some of the stuff. So we're going to talk about software availability, and then we're going to go on to a little bit of new releases, and then a bit of a Q&A at the end, hopefully. In terms of software, obviously our students are now working from home as the university is shut down. Not permanently, just through the outbreak. But one of the big difficulties is students getting access to the software and able to do their assignments and to work on their 3D and 2D products. So we just want to go through a couple of sources to make sure that everyone knows where they can get access to most, if not all, of the software that you would use on a regular basis. So let's start going through, and we'll start off with 3D modeling. So the first one is 3ds Max and Maya. That washing machine is about to... Sorry if you can hear that in the background.
It made me laugh anyway.
So hopefully 3ds Max and Maya are the two primary 3D modeling packages that we use. And if you go to autodesk.com/education, which is this site here, there is a tab at the bottom that says download free software. That will allow you to go in and download any of the Autodesk products as a student. So there shouldn't be any reason why you can't get access to the Autodesk products at all. The other big one is actually Blender. Blender 2.8 has got better and better. Now the Blender website's not working at the moment for whatever reason.
Just going to put just on the 3D Studio thing and the free software for Autodesk.
Yep.
It's worth mentioning, I think, that I think when you first sign up, it tells you it's going to be 1 year. But for anyone who's worried about that, if you're a first or second year, it does reset each year of your studentship, of your academic career. So even though it'll say it's a 12-month thing, you just reset it 12 months later. Obviously, once you leave, that stops. But while you're a student, it does keep resetting. So don't worry about it just being a 12-month thing.
Yeah. So blender.org, which currently seems to be down for whatever reason, is an open source 3D package, and it has got better and better each year. Blender 2.8 is ridiculously good, and you'll see Blender pop up quite a few times as we go through this list of packages to use for different scenarios, but you should be able to do any 3D modeling that you need as we go through. When it comes to 3D sculpting, obviously the king of 3D sculpting is ZBrush, and I'm pretty sure Daryl will attest that there's nothing better than ZBrush.
It's amazing.
So normally ZBrush, you can't get access to it unless you buy a license, but during this coronavirus outbreak, Pixelogic have actually released a trial version. So if you go to pixelogic.com/ZBrush/trial, there is a full, no restrictions in terms of features, 30-day trial. So hopefully that will allow you to get through this working from home period with a full working copy of ZBrush. We've then got Blender again. Now Blender has sculpting tools in it, which are getting better and better for each version. Now 2.82 has added a load of extra sculpting stuff in there, so definitely worth having a look at Blender if you've not already. And on the very low end, is just for basic sculptural forms. Sculptress is another tool made by Pixelogic, but is completely free for anyone to go and use and play around with. So if you've never seen that, worth having a look at.
Can I just add that we obviously missed a piece of software from this list, and we should have listed Mudbox from Autodesk.
Yes, technically Mudbox is in this free version here. Now you technically can use Mudbox. I wouldn't, but that's just me.
Yeah, we're not loading that.
Next we come up to texturing and painting and all the other things that we might need to do. The sort of the piece of software that's growing in the industry quite rapidly and becoming quite near enough becoming industry standard is the Substance Suite, with Substance Painter and Substance Designer, and you can get an educational license for this by going to substance3d.com/education, which is here. So, and from here you can get your free license as a student. All you have to do is send them a copy of your student ID.
And just so you know, Matt, I'm putting these links, I'm trying to keep up with you, I'm putting these links in the chat, so anybody who wants to, rather than typing them themselves, they can
Oh, cool, that's good.
follow the chat.
Now, again, Substance is very powerful and will allow you to actually paint directly on the 3D model or generate procedural textures in Substance Designer. Now, the big industry standard is obviously Photoshop, and a lot of you will be using that. And up until now, Adobe haven't had any type of student license. They've had student discounts, but during the outbreak, Adobe have opened up to give you access to the full Adobe suite. All you need to do is go to adobe.com/UK, and when you sign in using the Huddersfield credentials. Now I put a link in here. It's a very long one, but it's one to our HUD help desk, and in there's a little guide on what you need to do in order to make sure you have access to the Creative Suite to be able to download software onto your own machine and use the licenses that the Huddersfield have, essentially. So that's definitely worth going to if you didn't already know that you can get access to at home for this period. Now the two below this are Photoshop alternatives. Now Krita is, in my view, ridiculously good for an open source free piece of software. It replicates pretty much most of the painting tools in Photoshop, and actually in some cases adds to them as well. Adds a few extra things. So Krita, if you've not heard of it, is definitely worth going to have a look at and to download, and that's completely free because it's open source. The other one is the go-to, which is GIMP, Graphic Image Manipulation Program. That's what it stands for. So if you want to use another free alternative to Photoshop, you've got GIMP. I would say out of the two, Krita is actually better for what we do as game artists, so worth having a look at that.
You'll notice on that slide, if you go back to it, Matt, I had to edit it on the fly. I've added the Quixel mixer on.
Oh, yes, I completely forgot about the Quixel suite as well. The Quixel suite
dropped a link in there as well.
Is really good, and is now free because Unreal bought it and has pushed it out for free for everybody. So worth going to have a look at that if you haven't already. In terms of engines, Obviously, you've got the two big ones, Unreal and Unity. Both are completely free. You should be able to get access to them. If there are any programmers are watching, obviously you don't have the restrictions of the version of the engine that's running at the university anymore in terms of Unity. So you could actually, if you wanted to, upgrade, but at this stage I wouldn't recommend that. But again, you just go to the Unreal Engine, download it, you go to the Unity engine, you download. But there are a whole host of other game engines that you might not even heard of. Godot engine is really an up-and-comer for 3D stuff, and then you've got some 2D engines down there if you want, if you're making 2D games. Essentially, that's most, if not all, of the software that you're probably going to use on a regular basis. There are more specialist pieces of software, like you've got Marvelous Designer for cloth simulation and clothing simulation. There is a 30-day free trial of that if you want to try that one. Can anyone think of any other more specialist ones that people might use?
What's that? I don't know what it's called, but that one you use where you can see all images on the screen. It's not something I use, but
Oh, PureRef.
Oh yeah, there is PureRef as well.
Is that free?
Yeah, PureRef is free. PureRef.com is a reference image piece of software that just sits over all windows and is really powerful for any 3D artist or anyone trying to utilize references in any way, shape or form. So definitely worth having a look at that. Obviously, in my lessons recently, we've been talking about photogrammetry. So there is Meshroom. For those that want to play around with open source photogrammetry software, or if you go back to the Autodesk, you can get Recap within the student license as well.
I suppose additionally, I mean, Marmoset's an incredibly useful tool. The UVing tools, there are plenty of UV tools that you could look at. What's that? I forgot the name of that piece. The freeware version of Horizon. What's that called?
Not sure.
No, Matt's
Unfold 3D.
Unfold 3D. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's a bit retro, but it's amazing.
Yeah.
If you can get a hold of a copy of Unfold 3D, I'd highly recommend that as well.
Marmoset Toolbag again isn't usually free, but they have added a 30-day free trial, which if you're using it to get your products and your assignments ready for presentation, you can utilize that free trial in there as well. Okay, so that's basically our little breakdown on software, and we just wanted to make sure that you knew that you can get access to these pieces of software. You're not limited by working at home. Working at home can always be tricky, and we want to make sure that software isn't the stumbling block in that process. Obviously, for some of you, hardware might be the stumbling block, but we'll have to deal with that on a per student basis and discuss that with your module leaders. But that's essentially it. What we're going to do for the rest of this live stream is we want to actually lighten the mood a little bit, because there's a lot of bit of doom and gloom going on at the moment in the world. So we thought we'd talk about some of the new releases that are coming out at the moment, and how they're helping people get through this process, but also some of the cool stuff that they're introducing into the game dev ecosystem, from art and storytelling and things like that. Daryl and Ash have been playing quite a bit of Half Life Alyx over the last few days. Obviously, Doom Eternal has come out, which has some really cool tech involved in it. And a lot of our students I know have been playing Animal Crossing. I'm not that familiar with the Animal Crossing games, but I can see the appeal of them. So let's go through and talk about some of these first. So should we start with Half-Life or Doom?
Half-Life will be an interesting start because we've already got two very different views. We've got David suggesting Alyx wasn't great, and we've got one of our first years suggesting Alyx was great. So
I mean, I'd be interested actually for who say it was David saying it's not good. I'd love to back that comment up. What's bad about it? I've not found anything that I don't love at this stage.
he's asking me to prove him wrong, so I guess we'll. If
wrong. There you go. I have spoken.
Yeah.
I think he's more memeing than
tell us a
anything.
little bit about what's about it, because I'm wanting to buy it myself, but that's it.
So I think let's start the discussion then on Half-Life Alyx, and I think the big thing that most people were talking about is the fact that it's essentially Half-Life 3. The thing that you never thought would get released.
But if it's Half-Life 3, I'll buy it now.
But they have, and they've released it in VR format. So I think Daryl, being our VR go-to spokesperson,
I think what be looking for is obsessive.
Yeah, obsessive. I think we need to pass it over to Daryl to see why you think Half-Life in VR is better than Half-Life not in VR.
I think it's immediate. You get in there and there's no learning curve. Like with any video game you pick up that's got a controller, it's like do this with your controller, press this button, do this. And that's always difficult. Particularly, I've had that experience where, and I'm sure some of you have had that experience where you start playing a game and then you get distracted by real life, and you're about you're in that you just got to the end of the tutorial essentially, and you put that down and then you go back to the game and you're going, which button combo does what? I've kind of forgotten how to make this work. There is absolutely none of that with Half-Life Alyx. You get in there and it just feels absolutely intuitive right from the get-go. The cool thing is, and I don't want to switch to that slide that we put up with the gravity glove on there. But the beautiful thing with it is that Valve have gone the extra mile and got it working absolutely perfectly with all of the VR headsets. So, I mean, the controllers differ immensely. And my preference is Windows Mixed Reality. And the controllers can be a bit clunky, certainly if you're playing something like Pistol Whip or something of that nature. It doesn't quite have the fluidity you would expect from, say an Index or something of that nature, but somehow they've managed to get the fundamentally clunky controllers that come with the mixed reality headsets working beautifully with this game. It's just fantastic. The immediate thing that you notice is the attention to detail just in what happens with your hands. Most VR games that I've played so far, and I've played quite a few, are really quite clunky. The hands will open and close, and ultimately they'll hold a gun, and that is about all that you get. And the hands in Alyx just seamlessly move from one post to the next. They interact with the environment in a really incredibly elegant manner, and that adds to that sense of realism and immersion in a way that you wouldn't naturally have expected if you'd just seen a video of it. I think you have to experience it, and I know I was probably going to say this over and over again, but you do to some degree. Also, the kind of weighting of 3D objects, the doors, just simple things like doors that work so badly in so many other games that I've played, have weight, the right weight. You push you want to gently open a door so you can see what's going on, and you can push. You can have the gun in. I'm trying to get your camera now in shot, but you have your gun in shot, and you push the door and you push it open like this, see what's going on behind that door. And it feels natural, it feels real, it feels like you're there. The other thing that lends to that is the impeccable quality of the textures. I don't have the fastest gaming rig any longer. I've got a 1080. It was pretty damn good when I first got it, but of course there are much faster systems out there. I've kind of ramped it up to medium settings. The recommended for my machine was low settings, weirdly. God knows what you need to play it on ultra. But even on those lower settings, the quality, well, you can see it in the video that Matt's playing right now, the quality of those textures, even close up, you can walk right up to those textures and they are beautiful, and they're not just
No,
mega scans or anything of that nature. They're handcrafted and absolutely delightful. Ash, sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to jump in. You said, interestingly, you just said they're not mega scans, but they have posted that a lot of it is photogrammetry. They've just optimized it really well and baked it down
I said
incredibly.
they're not just mega scans. That's what I was saying.
Oh, right, I see.
They're very, very clearly taken the care to manipulate those scan images and go the extra mile to make them absolutely perfect.
But it works on Ultra for me fine, even using an Oculus Link. So I'm quite surprised.
What graphics card are you running?
I got an RTX. I can't remember what it is. I think it's just 2070. So
yeah, but you're a series of graphics card above me, so it's not surprising.
We've got some text from David just explaining his problem, or not his problem, his thoughts on it. He sent us the TLDR version, so rather than a long version, but basically expecting more innovations from the gameplay. So story is cool. Boneworks excelled at providing a ton of unique gameplay, whereas Alyx felt a bit more focused towards art and story. It's an understandable trade-off that it didn't have as much interesting gameplay. Also, Boneworks' movement was way better. So there's a couple of things there. There's the movement side of things, and then there's that focus on art and story.
Boneworks, I've played.
Go on, sorry, Ash. Go on.
Oh, sorry. I've played Boneworks as well, and I did enjoy what you could do with it, but it just felt clunky. Like you were saying, Daryl, with the physics in this game, it's great. Everything's got weight and it feels accurate. Whereas Boneworks, everything was just sliding all over the place for me. So I feel like this is Boneworks, but they've sort of refined it and toned it down a little. But yeah, just the story and the atmosphere of it is so immersive. It's the most sort of immersive experience I've had in a VR game.
It just feels really solid, doesn't it? It feels like you are there, and I've not really had. I mean, obviously you got that. I think Moss has almost that sort of like level of immersion, but it's about the only thing that I've played that does. I mean, Duke and I have played Arizona Sunshine to death, and it's just you're constantly looking at the graphics, going, that could be better. Ooh, that's a bit clunky. Ooh, particularly sort of like the hands holding the guns. That's always a bit annoying. And this is just. I mean, I've just found myself. I am getting the opposite. Actually, I'm looking at it and going, "Wow, look at that! Wow, look at that!" I need to. I think I'd probably be happier on my second playthrough because I won't be studying the environment quite as much as I am. The other thing is that I've played Form and similar titles, puzzle games in VR, and they work really well, but they're not a patch on this. This really does take all of that puzzle design to the next level, and it's super clear what's going on. And you get those sort of like moments of epiphany. You're going, well, how do I solve that? And you go, oh yeah, it's been stupid, yeah. And that puts you either don't take it as being stupid, or it puts a silly grin on your face because you figured out what you were meant to do. They're not holding your hand. They're not telling you what to do. You have to figure it out for yourself. But it is clever, seamless puzzle design of the best quality. It really is fantastic from that perspective.
I think the biggest thing from a game dev perspective is that this is a massive AAA, big budget, VR only title, which you cannot really say before now that that's been a thing. So the fact that there are going to be countless people going out buying headsets just to play this game is going to open the doors for other developers to take a risk on VR and go, okay, well, I've just seen, there was lads.
I've just seen David's response.
There was lads. But yeah, if anyone watching don't know, Canal Studio made a VR title called Lads, Little Awesome Dudes. It's on Steam. You can go buy it now.
Not as much as Half Life Alyx.
It's not quite as much. You get it. It's fun. But more and more studios are going to take a risk. So there's going to be bigger and bigger incentives for different studios to actually make something more interesting and sort of bigger budget that might not have actually occurred before. So
not just sorry, I was just saying not just that as well, but indies have a hard time getting published with VR titles because sort of publishers are afraid of if it's going to take off, does it work, how many people have headsets, the stats aren't well known. But yeah, I think it's going to open up a lot of sort of publishing opportunities for indies as well. if it sells enough headsets. I think when it launched, there was 28,000 people in game a couple of hours after it launched. So that's a lot of headsets. So imagine how much it was before.
Yeah. So I think indies are going to get a little bit more reign to actually approach publishers, and they're going to take a little bit more of a risk on these little VR titles. So
that's a good pragmatic question, because after listening to all that and watching the trailer again, I decided I wanted to purchase it for myself. But I just wondered, what is it, a full room experience or a seated experience?
Both, either. It doesn't. You can choose to play it in so many different ways. You can play it seated. It's got 4 different methods of locomotion. I guess the only real issue is if you're seated, peeking around corners is going to be a bit peculiar.
Also, crouching. I've not found a way to sort of crouch through the tunnels yet without actually having to crouch, which has been an issue for people in the forums, like that are sort of wheelchair bound and whatnot, which seems like a big sort of missed thing by Valve.
I just strange. Sorry for the interruption there, but one of my daughters has just brought me a banana and blueberry smoothie, so I couldn't.
That's what she tells you it is. It's probably paste and something, cardboard or something like that.
Okay, so let's keep this rolling. Let's go and let's. The one of the other big releases last week was Doom Eternal, which is the latest version from id Software, and actually I think one of the more interesting things about Doom is not the gameplay or the experience or anything like that, because it's just in essence it's another Doom game. Now that's not saying it's a bad thing. Doom is awesome, and the gameplay is very refined, but the tech behind it is probably the thing that we want to talk about the most. For those that don't know, like Doom 2016 was deferred rendering, whereas the new latest version of id Tech doesn't use that anymore. So they're actually using a completely different pipeline, which is allowing them to push the visuals to a much higher level than before. And even on the more low-end machines, so your original PS4, not even the Pro, and your original Xbox, are still looking to this standard, just with lower resolution. And I think and they've aimed for 60 frames per second on all consoles. So I think just from a technical perspective, Doom Eternal is ridiculously good to look at. Now, one of the things that we have pulled out as a talking point is, to just get it up, is their use of decals. Now, in the latest Digital Foundry video, so it's worth going to watch this entire video. It's a really good breakdown of the tech involved. They give a little sneak peek at the decal system that they're using and how it actually impacts the visuals of the game. So part of the process is that instead of modeling every single little bit of intricate detail and the nuts and the bolts and all these other little things in the game, like a traditional pipeline, a high poly to low poly workflow, they're modeling sort of a generalized primitive that has the general shape, and then applying all these little decals on top and running those as a separate pass in the renderer, which allows you to get this ridiculous level of high fidelity detail in all of the surfaces. So like I said, in Digital Foundry they do a nice little breakdown showing all of the decals in a particular scene, and then toggling those on and off. Now, I don't know if any of you other guys have played Doom at all.
No, none at all.
I've not played this newest one because it's the same price as Half Life Alyx, so it's one or the other, I think. But one of the other things that interests me with this new Doom even is the way that they're fitting more geometry in. So over the last 20 years, it's always been about reducing geometry and using textures for detail. But because they've now got this new system of increasing the poly count, but then having a bit of an in-between software buffer that basically rejects all the polys it doesn't need to render.
It's also got a really good loading engine built in as well, hasn't it?
Yeah, so I think what I'm interested in that whole going back to geometry as well, so like combining all the modern technologies of textures, but also remembering that geometry can be useful too.
Yeah,
not just a flat surface and then trying to normal everything, but building in keeping some geometry, putting some geometry back in, and then figuring out how to render something that's so detailed efficiently. So using like the login stuff, and then this hiding or rejecting bits that need rendering when they're occluded.
Yeah, the organic sections in this video that you're playing, Matt, really demonstrate that amazingly well. It shows the triangle count in the organic components, and they are high poly. I mean, there's certain scenes, you're getting towards that point where the polygons almost equal pixels. They've certainly not skimped on the poly count, but it runs at 60 FPS quite happily. It's quite an amazing. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. It's
the poly counts that are running now in these engines you wouldn't call these low poly at all anymore. No. They're utilizing really, really sophisticated lodding and visual culling systems, enabled to push the fidelity of what the player sees at any particular moment. And so combining the poly count along with the texture quality, and then you're putting your decals on top of all of that, and then doing vertex painting to actually hide the fact that you're duplicating assets and you're having instances all over the scene, is that you then put your decals and then you put your vertex paint on top of that, and everything then starts to feel like it's a completely unique asset, even though it's not. So I think the tech behind id 7 really does demonstrate the way in which the industry is moving in terms of development. We've got, just in the same week, we've got Half Life Alyx pushing things from interaction and storytelling perspectives. And
I would also argue from a graphical fidelity perspective in VR.
Oh yeah, the fact that's running in VR. So unlike something like Doom, which is they're aiming as a minimum of 60 frames per second, in VR, I think you have to aim for 90 to sort of get a seamless sort of experience. So I think there's a lot to be said about these two releases, and once you start delving a little bit deeper into why they're such a big deal, not only from a meme perspective but actual game dev, it really does showcase something quite interesting.
Yeah, now, I remember right from the video, Matt, that they said they're kicking around nearly 200 million polygons per frame?
Yeah.
That's just insane.
Yeah, but the fact that per level, so the fact that they can then cull those based on the visual.
Right, okay, so it wasn't... All right, I was...
There's an article on Eurogamer about how if they laid them out flat, you could get 80 to 90 million triangles in view, but that's where the culling comes in.
Yeah, so they are having ridiculous poly counts in a particular scene, but they're culling the hell out of it, the whole thing. Can Doom Eternal run Crisis?
The question that we always ask of everything.
Yeah. And I think the last big release of the week, which is probably going to be the most difficult one for us to talk about, unless, Ash, you've been playing it a little bit, haven't you?
A few days, yeah.
Yeah, so is Animal Crossing. Now, Animal Crossing is an interesting one because I completely understand the appeal of it, that sort of just escapism, going around, looking after things. The fact that it's got such a massive appeal, though, it's become huge, Animal Crossing. It'd be quite interesting to hear your opinions, Ash, on why you think it is so popular in why so many people playing it.
Just to escape from this sort of world, I guess. It's It would be a nice world to live in. So it's a game where you don't sit and just play it for hours on end, but you just put in a couple of hours every day and sort of see the rewards of your town growing, and it's just relaxing. So the same feeling I get from it is when I've played Ori and the Blind Forest. Is It's just so chill. Sit back. You've got a list of things to do, but those things keep stacking up, and you sort of want to get them all done. So you're almost just chipping away at the sort of task list every day. Which, if I could do that with work and stuff, that would be great. But
Is it
Well, maybe you
basically
stopped playing video games and got some work done, you'd be fine.
no.
Is it basically a modern Tamagotchi?
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. It's it's not your town. The other one's that you were mayor, I believe. But you start on an empty sort of island with that raccoon you're seeing there, or is it a trash panda, whatever they're called, and you just basically build up civilization.
A raccoon?
Yeah,
So
it's a
what's the
raccoon, isn't it?
He just called it a trash panda.
Yeah.
What's the difference between this?
Me, but me.
What's the difference between this then and something like SimCity?
I'm guessing the cutesy appeal of the different animals and the different personalities that you go around in the town.
So it's at person level rather than an overview.
Yeah, so it's the individual characters within a town that you go and interact with.
Yeah.
I think someone said it quite nice there that Stardew Valley caught the mainstream, and Animal Crossing is sort of the next logical step for people. I think that's probably quite nice. Apart from Animal Crossing technically came before Stardew.
And with this as well, there's a ton more customization than based on the last ones, because people were spending most of their time making their houses, inviting friends over, having little parties inside the sort of world. So as far as I know,
Well, that's not
Nintendo...
allowed anymore, is it?
Well, we can now on Animal Crossing. We can all stay inside and have our social gatherings there.
Well, I have seen on like Reddit and places like that people are having family get-togethers in Animal Crossing because they can't have them in real life. So that's quite nice.
So is it on? I assume it's on. I mean, it's Nintendo, so it must be
Switch.
Switch only.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much is it?
I'm guessing it's Nintendo, so it's probably 50 quid.
50 quid.
Yeah.
All three games we've talked about are the same price.
Yeah, that's life. Yeah.
Yeah, 49 quid. Yeah, so they're all within a fiver of each other.
I'm enjoying it. It's good. First day I played it, I was playing it for a long time, and I was like, oh, I can't really do any more now until tomorrow because I've got to wait for things to build, sort of town people to come over. And then I've been playing it less and less each day. So I just wish you could do more at some points other than running around catching bugs. But when you get a task list, it's really good.
So I think that's actually quite a nice little breakdown of... We have 3 different games, all with different appeals and different processes and different ways of interacting with it, and yet all 3 are demonstrating sort of the big push in game dev at the moment.
Oh, videos are frozen.
Oh yeah, we
That
have.
was with my machine. I was wondering what was going on.
Have we?
Can you still hear us?
I
see F's in chat.
Are we still streaming?
Daryl froze in happy mode, which I don't think has ever happened.
Oh, they can hear us still. We've got audio. Just.
So we'll.
Hit you with a hammer.
Is that your OBS, Matt?
I'm guessing my OBS seems. Oh, we're going again. I think. Apart
We're
from
going
Yeah,
No.
it's into Animal Crossing.
we don't have our video. Zoom is obviously OBS.
We've all
is-
turned our lights out at the same time.
Okay, so it's a good place to wrap up, I think. What I wanted to go into actually is a Q&A section at the back end. If I just switch over to the screen capture here, we can...
Can you pull up an image of the old test car from the BBC? The one with the chalkboard, just leave that on the screen.
Well, they know what that is.
I don't care. It'll make me happy.
Last thing we're going to do is just go into the Q&A of the live stream and just see if there's any questions that anyone wants to throw out there before we wrap up for the week.
I've also got Discord open if any people want to question through Discord.
They also could you post a video for Doom?
Yeah, the Digital Foundry one. Yeah, we'll post that.
It's on YouTube, I guess.
Yeah.
And one thing, Matt, you kept saying id Software. For the last forever, it's always been ID Software for me. I guess I've never heard anyone ever say it.
It's id, as in id, ego, and super ego.
Yeah, no, I don't know why, but I guess there was no internet really when I was playing the original Doom, so to me it was just ID.
So you're wrong. Move on.
Sorry, there was internet. There wasn't a web. Doom Eternal Techno, I guess.
Yeah, so my PC seems to have just killed all of our video streams, but that's fine.
Who killed it?
We have just black screens to finish up with.
Awesome.
There don't seem to be any particular questions popping up, so unless you can see anything, Duke or Ash.
Kiara said, sometimes for a game to be great, it doesn't have to be groundbreaking. I think that's she's right.
I think that's a very good point. Is that when you, especially something like Animal Crossing, it isn't groundbreaking, but it's just that appeal that it has of wanting to scratch that itch for a particular gameplay style.
It also depends on your personal preference. Like, I quite enjoy the Far Cry games, just for wandering around, having fun in a large environment. But they're rarely groundbreaking. Each one is a evolution of the previous one, but they're always, I think, pretty great games. Same with the Forza franchise. They're generally just evolutions, but they're all pretty great.
Yeah, and again, I think someone put that nostalgia trip as well is always something, which is a good point.
Somebody pointed out Far Cry 2. Yes, I agree, except Far Cry 2.
Oh, yeah. Get a bus here, kill this thing, come back, get a bus there. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy Far Cry 2 at all.
Okay.
Other than that.
So we'll end it there for this week. It's been an interesting... would you ever make a stream talking about retro games? I think Darryl would love to spend a stream talking about retro games.
Yeah, do you want a 12-hour stream? Yeah, I'm quite happy to do that. I was actually just thinking, everyone's locked down, and everyone needs to be made a bit happier. And every year, with the students, I always do kind of a bit of a straw poll and go, right, who's seen Princess Bride? And I always get that sort of thing of, what on earth are you talking about, Darryl? And about 3 hands go up and they all go, yeah, it's awesome. And then everyone always thinks that it sounds weird, so they're not going to watch it. So I'm just going to say it's not a video game, it's a movie. Go and watch Princess Bride whilst you've got nothing better to do with your lives, because it's incredibly funny.
They've all got hand-ins, Darryl.
Yeah, they've all got hand-ins.
Okay.
Also, I agree Princess Bride is great, but I'm not sure we need to mention it every week. But, I like the retro gaming idea. That's quite cool. We could do some play some retro
Let's
games.
do that next week.
Sorry, I'm busy. That day.
I like the comment there. Darryl is a retro game.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll wrap up for this week, and we'll come back to you next week with some more discussion points and maybe some more updates on Corona potentially, but we'll see how it goes. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.